And we're back, and if you're wondering what's cool, what to put in your house so that you're on trend and so that you're on trend in years to come as well, right? I mean, predicting the future, if that's what you're looking for, interior design-wise, you've come to the right place. This is the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, and we've got all the answers, not just some, not just a few, not just a handful of good ones. We've got all the answers, right, Haley?
Yeah, I'm going to say all of that was in jest.
Okay. We have some answers, though, right?
We have some ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to talk about something that Haley brought up to me, and it really just kind of boggled my mind.
Yeah. It blew your mind a little. And then you got a little angry.
Well, I did. And hopefully, I'm going to channel that anger into some positive action moving forward to help everybody out there. But tell us what design trend, an interior design trend that's been big for a while.
Yeah, it's been big for a little while now. And it's like, I think, very tied to Scandinavian design and minimalist design. Plywood.
Right.
Untouched, sealed, but raw plywood walls, cabinets, fixtures, furniture, floors, the whole deal, plywood.
All right. So all of that was said way too quickly for it to really get into people's heads so they can picture this. So gather around the radio.
Yeah.
Grab your loved ones, your friends, and then just picture this. Plywood on the kitchen cabinets. The kitchen cabinets are made of plywood.
Made of plywood.
They're not painted plywood.
No.
They're just natural plywood. With that natural graining. There you go. And surrounding those cabinets, the walls on which those cabinets hang.
Plywood.
Plywood. Same color.
Ceiling.
Plywood. So good luck trying to find the chips or whatever. You don't even know where your cabinets are.
It's all camouflaged.
It all blends together. The floors can be plywood.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen spaces like that. I've seen spaces with the
there's
steps.
like the extreme plywood look, which is like the entire house and the inside is plywood. And then there are also people that have taken just the element of plywood and applied it in accents. I've got a friend that's building a house and she's really into Scandinavian design. She's always been that way. And the way that she's decided to kind of bring that design element into the house is with plywood. And so she's making a giant accent wall out of plywood. The stairs leading to the basement and upstairs are made out of plywood. The cabinets, I think, are white, but the backsplash and the wall behind them, plywood. So she's bringing in certain elements that it's not everywhere. It's not every single surface, but it's definitely leaning into that trend.
Okay. So is this something that you have seen a lot of before your friend brought it up to your attention?
I've seen it, because I look at Instagram and Pinterest and all of that.
Okay, so talk about that. You're seeing it all over the place, a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
What is the general consensus out there when it comes to how people are using it? Are they using it as accents in a small scale, or are they using it in the more extreme picture that I painted earlier?
I think the extreme pictures that you've painted, I would say that that's usually it sounds backwards, but like extremely high-end builds where like this is a very specific architectural statement. Someone is really trying to push in a certain direction, an architect is, and you're coming up with a home that's all plywood at that point. I think that in like normal people's homes, we're seeing this as accents.
So rich people, they're not normal?
Your everyday person.
Okay.
Like this isn't the
they're
top
not the
1%.
People, the hoi polloi, the rest of us.
Right.
But they're still normal.
Yeah, they're normal.
Right.
To some extent.
They pass some
as
kind of
normal as they can
psychological
be.
exam or something like that. But they just got more money than the rest of us.
Yeah.
So those are the designs where you see it really pushed. And I think it's important what you're talking about. You're saying that it's an intentional push.
Exactly. Like from the ground up, it's been built around the idea that plywood is the material.
Right. That's what we mean by intentional. We know if you put plywood up, it's intentional. You meant to do it. It's a different kind of intentional. And we talked about that. We ran into that almost a year ago, or closing in on a year ago, with Frank Gehry, the architect. And he's really polarizing
Yeah.
is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
A lot of people love what Frank Gehry does, and a lot of people hate what Frank Gehry does, and there's not a lot of ground in between.
Right.
It's very tough to be in the middle on that. I mean, his
That's
designs
true.
really push you in one direction
Yeah.
or another. And one of the things early on in his career, he decided to take some of these undesirable, let's say,
Yeah.
elements, materials.
Like chain link fence, corrugated metal, things that we
Yeah.
try to like not highlight.
Right. And he made that as key
The feature,
statements in
yeah.
a number of his pieces, including his own home.
Right.
So that was intentional. He's doing it with the idea of using a material that kind of pushes boundaries.
Right. Like he's recontextualizing it. He's seeing it and trying to maybe see the potential beauty in this material rather than how we normally look at it.
Right.
Like it could just be a fence, or I could see this pattern and I could really, fall in love with the weaving of the metal.
Yeah, it never happened for me. I tried to like the chain link.
I don't think it's going to happen for most people.
No, it's pretty tough. It's a tough sell. But let's get back to the plywood. That's what you're saying.
Right.
When we see an entire space enveloped in plywood, it's usually one of those situations.
Right.
Somebody's really
An
pushing.
architect is really trying to push in a direction.
The regular people, the rest of us, are
Yeah.
using it more in the terms of accents.
Yeah.
And we're seeing whole walls. And I guess let's dig into that a little bit because I want to make sure that everybody's got the idea and is picturing it. Because for me, when you pitched this and talked about this concept, I had a different picture in mind. I did not think about the fact that literally on a wall, a lot of these installs, even the common ones, even the ones that we would say are just using it as an accent,
Right.
they're throwing up 4x8 sheets of plywood and they're not filling any seams.
Right.
Not a lot of
yeah.
that going on at
No,
all.
They're not trying to make it look like it's seamless. I mean,
Right. And
it's
it
very
just-
obvious what it is.
Right. And man, that one is tough for me. So,
And I think it's, when we say that, I imagine that people are just asking the question, why? Why are they doing this?
Right. Why are they doing it, Haley?
I don't exactly, I don't have a definitive answer. I feel like the why is, one, it brings a lot of warmth into the space, right? It's like doing paneling in the 70s. Like you're just embracing a natural material and going nuts with it.
Right. Now, gray has been a big thing,
Yeah.
the color gray.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that's out because the last time we did that on air, we got a lot of emails. So if you're already getting ready to fire off a missive, just let it go.
Yeah.
It can be still in. If you love it, that's all that matters. But I think there is a little bit of a reaction.
Yeah, I think there's a pushback about gray at this point. I think some people are done with it. They're so sick of it that they're going as far in another direction as they possibly can. And that's with something that has so much warmth, so much texture, so much pattern that there's just a lot of life in comparison.
Right. So we've got that going on. I think that's a big part of it. I know sustainability, that's another word that's been used. It's
DIY friendly.
It's DIY, all of those things. Another thing that I read, and I brought it up to you, it was a little bit annoying. It was one of those blog posts where they talked about how drywall is just so sterile and boring that, it's been a big trend to bring in this color, this texture, all of that you're talking about, something that's not lifeless like drywall.
Right.
Well, good grief. If you're painting your drywall a sterile, boring color, it's going to be boring, but color can do a fair amount.
You can paint a mural on the wall. It's no longer lifeless and boring.
Right. So that I thought was a little ridiculous. But I think basically that's probably the why. Easy to work with, all of those things. It's unusual.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of it, especially for, like we talked about, the really high-end homes that are using this everywhere. I think in that case, this is an architect's, I'm going to be different. I'm making a statement with this material, and I'm going to use it in a way that no one else has used it before.
But in your instance, your experience right now, you're talking to somebody who's using it
in a limited way.
Yeah. And still, she had some issues trying to push this through with her builder, her designers. They thought she was nuts.
Right. Yeah. Because this isn't something that we're seeing, especially in the Midwest, right? Like, I think these really big boundary pushing design trends, we tend to see more on the coast, the West Coast for sure. And she's doing it in West Michigan.
Right.
So people haven't necessarily seen it before. And the builder is just thinking, this is a material that I hide. This is not a material that I show off.
Right. And that is the strange part of all of this is a lot of the designs that I see online, I'm looking at pictures and even the ones that are well done, to me, I'm still looking at this as material that should be hidden. The graining is not beautiful to me at all. And I guess I'm tipping my hand. I want to take
how do you feel about this, Dan?
Take a break right now. We've kind of established
what this is.
What it is as a design trend.
Yeah.
And we want to dig into it on the other side of the break. So we're going to take a break right now. Hang with us, and we'll be back in just a minute to kind of give you our take on what we think about it all. That's all just ahead. Stay tuned. Well, Haley, we're talking about plywood as a design trend.
Yes.
An interior design choice that you're throwing on your walls and not covering over with anything except maybe a clear coat.
Exactly.
So you can see the beauty
of plywood.
The plywood. This is the Repcolite Home Improvement Show. I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Haley Johnson. And we've been talking about this as something that's a little out there, but I've seen someone in our area recently do it, so I thought, why not talk about it?
Right. So now we've talked about it as, where it's being used, kitchen cabinets, walls, stairways, you name it, everywhere, ceilings, floors, entire rooms engulfed in plywood.
Yes.
And as we mentioned, it's a design trend. It's something people are thinking about and have been doing for a while now.
Yeah.
What do we think about it? Well, I guess my first thing, I've already tipped my hand.
You have.
I'm not a big fan. I don't like it.
No.
Hardly at all. It reminds me, every room that I see reminds me of a room that's like an old shed.
It's like a shanty.
Right. If I want to live in a shanty, if that's my dream, I don't want to have an indoor toilet. I feel like I've nailed it with this aesthetic. It feels just like I live somewhere else, far, far away from, the world with all of its convenience.
You have like a really hard time not just seeing it as plywood. Like you're not looking past the material at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Because so many of the spaces, like for instance, there was one where I could almost buy it.
Yeah.
It was the picture showed it on the wall in a bedroom, except there's one great big 4x8 sheet that's a completely different graining than all the rest of them.
It's a little distracting.
And then all I can see from that point on are all these big 4x8 sheets and all of that. So with that said, I don't like the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger reason that I hate this. But first, before I get to why I hate it.
Bigger reason.
Well, there is. And it's practical. I'm going to just get straight to it.
Yeah.
How do you fix this when you're sick of it? When you're sick of it? How do you fix this? Because I can't imagine there's not going to be a day where I'm not sick of this.
I don't know. I can see the potential in the material. Like, I honestly, this is not at all. I would not do this in my own home. I live in a Craftsman, and that's my butter zone. Like, give me anything in that time period, and I'm in love.
Sure.
But I can still see why people might choose to do this. And I do appreciate the aesthetic in some instances. I think that it can be done wrong in a big way really easily.
Right.
And that's probably what could happen quite often with people that are seeing this design trend online and then applying it to their homes as they sit now.
I guess that's the politically correct way of saying what I was saying. At least that's what I was trying to say.
Because it does provide like a lot of warmth. Well, I can kind of see the grain is pretty in some situations.
Completely agree with you.
The color is nice.
All of that is nice. I love all the wood God created. It's great. It's all nice. I just know that I can't think of a color that I've painted on a wall.
Sure.
That 10 years later, I've been thinking, man, that beige is still rocking it. You know?
It's like the argument for wallpaper. It's like
the argument against
wallpaper. Yeah. Is that at some point I'm going to get sick of this pattern.
And then how do I fix it? That's what I guess I'm getting at. Because the the plywood, it's not something, yes, you can paint over it. All of that's possible.
Yeah.
But a lot of these installs, in fact, most of them, you can see the seams.
Yes.
And painting over that, you're going to still see the seams. Filling that is problematic.
And you can still, unless, I guess some of it depends on what grade plywood you're getting. Plywoods can look very different from each other.
Absolutely.
But in some lower end plywood, you're going to see the graining no matter what you do.
Right. So those are things to be, keep in mind. And I guess that would be where I'd want to go with this last half. We talked about it as a trend, something that's out there. It's not a trend that is a big one for me because I can't imagine trying to deal with it if I decide I don't like it.
would not do this in your home, Dan.
No,
that would not work.
Well, no, my home's not built for it either.
Exactly.
It'd be like putting a square peg in a round hole.
Yes.
Wouldn't work. But maybe there are people who are thrilled with it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've made a huge case on, this show, as long as the show's been on the air, 6 years of this, something I'll live and die by is well, not really. I'm not going to die by this. Yeah. That's just a fancy way of saying that it's important to me. Yeah. It's everybody should do what they want to do when it comes to their own home. You can
absolutely
get a designer's opinion, and that's really good, and that can really push you outside of your boundaries. But if you don't like where they're pushing you, I've talked to way too many people who have done something that a designer has told them will be great, and they've hated it. They knew they were going to hate it. They hated it. And it's just wasted money, and you should love your home. Right. If you love colors that are way out of style, but you love them,
then that's what you love.
Who cares what style is? So if this is your bag, you love the plywood look, and I can certainly see that I like the concept.
Sure.
And if that's you, by all means, jump into it. You want to be aware of a few things.
Yeah.
And that would be, what am I going to do? Do you anticipate wanting to change this down the road? It's not going to be as easy as swapping out a paint color.
Right. And I guess, that would be an argument to maybe starting small with plywood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, by all means.
Yeah. Make it, an accent wall or
in somebody else's home. Get a good look at it that way. So if you have a friend who's on the fence and you're on the fence, push them over. Get them to jump in. And then you can see what you think.
It's terrible.
But yeah, start small. Another thing that I think, because there's other ways to do it. You don't have to just throw the 4x8 sheets on the wall. Because you've talked about, Haley, with the sheets being cut in little pieces or strips of some sort.
Yep.
That's something that I can see working with. If you're really pushing against gray, if really when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I guess assess why this is important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start with that. And if you are just pushing against gray, there are paint colors that can really help you accomplish
Wallpapers.
That. If it's texture that you're after, wallpaper is a great way to go. Because really, I still think as no fun as wallpaper can be to strip, at least in our minds, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But nobody still gets excited.
No one's excited to do that, yeah.
Right. It's still going to be easier, I think, than trying to cover the plywood over down the road. So wallpaper would be a way to go to bring in some texture, some color, all kinds of visual interest, and all of that.
It's not an easy material to fix if it gets damaged, is what I would say.
All right.
As a practical thing. If I'm hanging art on this and then I'm filling over those holes later because I've moved the art, I think it's way more obvious than when you're filling a hole in drywall, right?
Oh, Haley, you
can patch it and paint over it.
You just get those putties that blend right in, right? They don't work like that.
Yeah.
People tend to think they do, and they will. They will give you kind of the color.
Right.
But it's going to show up.
You're always going to see it.
Yeah, so that is something. I didn't even think about that. I think about my basement. It's paneled. It was awesome at some point when the Brady Bunch was being filmed, right? That's when it was awesome. Yeah. It's not so awesome right now. And yes, I can paint over it, but it's always going to have that paneling look.
It's always going to be paneling.
Plywood on the walls, even in a small scale, is still going to be plywood on the walls and painted over. You're going to see that. Kitchen cabinets as plywood.
It's always going to be plywood.
Man, that's something to think about. Those are things to weigh. Whenever you look at any color trend, any design trend,
absolutely,
lay that stuff out down the road. Now, to be fun, we want to know, you know what we think.
Yeah.
We want to know what you think. The whole concept, plywood in the decorating. Would you use it? Have you used it? Do you regret it? Do you love it? Email us, radio@repcolite.com, and we will take all of those, process all of that information, and maybe we'll have something really fun to relay next week.
Yes.
But most of all, we're going to be giving away 2 different gift certificates, one for the Detroit area, one for the Grand Rapids area, both of them for a free gallon of any Benjamin Moore paint. So email radio@repcolite.com. Have you used plywood in your decorating? Would you?
How do you feel about it?
Right? And we'll draw winners, and we'll announce those winners next week. One for Detroit, one for Grand Rapids, a free gallon of Benjamin Moore paint each. All right, Haley, that's all the time we've got. We're going to have to wrap it up. If you want to catch this one again, you can find it online at repcolite.com. Whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. The Repcolite stores are all open and waiting to help. I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Haley Johnson. Thanks for listening.